Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today on website conversions and audience remarketing with the Google Ads API. My name is Devin. I'm just hosting the webinar that my teammate Fan will be presenting. And I'll also be moderating the Q&A session that we'll be holding at the end of the webinar. There is a Q&A link at the top of the screen that Fan will go through, and also in the description of the YouTube video. So feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. We have a team of developer relations engineers, engineers working on the API, and product experts that will be answering questions throughout the webinar. But we'll also be going through the questions at the end for the benefit of those who couldn't make the session live today, and also just to highlight some interesting questions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my teammate Fan. I hope you all enjoy.
Hello, welcome to join the webinar today. My name is Wang Fan, a developer advocate covering the Google Ads API. In the next 1 hour, I will give you an introduction about the website conversions, audience, and remarketing using the Google Ads API. As mentioned, my name is Wang Fan. I'm based in the Shanghai office, supporting partners and developers' technical innovation using the Google Ads API. A quick Q&A housekeeping here before we get started. If you look at the top of the screen there, you can see the link. We'd love to hear any questions you have, because we will be holding a Q&A session after this webinar. We have invited some of my colleagues online from Ads Developer Relations team as well as API engineering team. And if you see questions from other folks that you think is interesting, please feel free to upvote. Then we can cover the questions in the order of the popularity. Let's have a quick look at today's agenda. First and foremost, let's start with an introduction to the Google Ads API. Instead of going into the details, I would like to give a high-level overview of the basic concepts, usages, and the difference from the old version of AdWords API. Section 2 is about conversion action. We are going to talk about the conversion action types, how the different conversion sources on the Google Ads UI correspond to the Google Ads API, the basic knowledge about GTag.js, and how to set them up to enable conversion tracking on your website. Then I will show you the definition of audience list, introduce several key scenarios with live coding. Let's say how to create a user list, and how to set up the remarketing targeting, and how to retrieve the performance report of user list with Google Ads query language. Finally, we will share some useful links before the Q&A session. They are for your reference to get help for the Google Ads API during the development. Now, let's start with an introduction to the Google Ads API. Google Ads API is a programmatic interface to Google Ads platform and the next generation of the AdWords API. Compared with the old version of AdWords API, which is based on Web Service Protocol, the new Google Ads API provides the unified data model and service definition, which are exposed to both gRPC and the REST interfaces. gRPC is an RPC, remote procedure call framework designed by Google, built on top of the HTTP tool. The prod buffer messages are binary encoded when transmitted, and thus not human readable like XML, but is more efficient for transportation and encoding. The RESTful interface enables you to access the API data directly on your web browser or other HTTP tools like Postman. It's lightweight, it's fast, and the learning curve for developers is low, but it can provide more powerful features for you to build technical products. We have published client libraries for 6 languages, including Java, C#, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Pro. Our client libraries provide high-level views and basic building blocks of the Google Ads API functionalities, with around 100 code examples to showcase the real-world usage of the API, making it easier to develop apps quickly. We strongly recommend starting out with one of the libraries if you are new to the Google Ads API. If you would like to learn more details about the Google Ads API, please check out the recap videos of 2019 Google Ads API workshops. They could give you an overview of the concepts in Google Ads API, how to get started, how to use different resources and services. They can guide you through the client libraries to send requests to the Google Ads API and share the best practices for development and migration. Now we are going to talk about the conversion actions and different conversion action types. Conversion tracking is very important in measuring the effectiveness of your online ads. Conversion tracking is a free tool that shows you what happens after a customer interacts with your ads, whether they purchased a product, signed up for your newsletter, called your business, or downloaded your mobile app. When a customer completes an action that you define as valuable, these customer actions are called conversions. Conversion tracking provides key insights into users' actions after viewing or clicking an ad, which enables you to re-engage with them in the later stage. Conversion tracking starts with you creating a conversion action in your Google Ads account. A conversion action is a specific customer activity that is valuable to your business. You can use conversion tracking to track the following kinds of actions: website actions, purchases, sign-ups, and other actions that customers complete on your website, app installs and in-app actions, installations of your Android or iOS mobile apps, and purchases or other activities within your apps, phone calls directly from your ads, calls to a phone number on your website, and clicks on a phone number on your mobile web page. Import, a customer activity that begins online but finishes offline, such as when the user clicks an ad and submits a contact form online, and later signs a contract in your office offline. If you are not familiar with conversion tracking and different action types, please read about the guides I provide in the slide about different ways to track conversions and create conversion actions on the Google Ads API. Most conversion actions also require additional steps on your part to track them. For instance, tracking conversions on your website requires creation of a conversion action object in the Google Ads API with the conversion action type set as web page. You will obtain a code snippet called a tag that you have to add to the conversion pages in your website. So, how the conversion tag works? When people interact with your ads by clicking a text ad or viewing a video ad, Google Ads stores cookies that contain information about this interaction. When someone converts on your website, the conversion tracking tag you installed reads this cookie and sends it back to Google Ads with the conversion information. The website conversions can be tracked for both two events of page load, count conversions when customers visit the conversion page, such as the confirmation page for purchase or sign up. This is the default and most commonly used option. Click, count conversions when customers click the button or link, such as Buy Now or Add to Cart button. The equivalent of these two event types on the API side are the web page and web page on click value of the text snippets type field of a conversion action object. Now, let's see how to create a conversion action for your website. First, let's try to create a conversion action for your website in the Google Ads UI. We have to log in to the Google Ads account, and in the upper right corner, let's click the tools icon. Under measurement, let's click the conversions link, the plus button. We can select different categories of conversions you want to track. For example, for your website, for your mobile apps, phone calls, and import. And for this webinar, for our business case, let's use website to track the actions on your website. Category. Select the action you'd like to track. You can use these categories to segment your campaign reports. For example, we can use purchase. Conversion name as purchase for website. Random suffix. The value field means it measures the impact of your advertising by giving conversions a value. We can use the same value for each conversion. For example, $5. Then select how many conversions to count per click or interaction. It's recommended to use every value here for purchases because every purchase is valuable in our website. Then the click-through conversion window field. We have to select how long to track conversions after an ad interaction from the drop-down. Conversions can happen several days after a person interacts with your ad. Let's select the maximum time after an ad interaction that you want to count as conversions. Let's use 30 days here. View through conversion window. Select how long to track the view through conversion from the drop-down as the maximum time after a person views your ad that you want to count view through conversions. Let's use 1 day here. Create and continue. To set up website conversion tracking for the first time, you will need to add 2 code snippets to your website: the global site tag and the event snippet. The global site tag adds visitors to your basic remarketing lists and sets new cookies on your domain, which will store the information about the ad click that brought a user to your website. You must install the tag on every page of your website. You can just copy the tag below and paste it between the head tags of every page on your website. Here is the example of the global site tag. The event snippet. It works with the global site tag to track conversions that should be counted as conversions. We can choose whether to track conversions on a page load or click. Just copy the snippet below and paste it between the head tags of the pages you would like to track right after the global site tag. But if you would like to track the event per click, you have to call the GTag report conversion method when someone clicks on the chosen link or button. Next. That's it. Let's talk more about the conversion tags. The global site tag, GTag.js, is a JavaScript tagging framework and API that allows you to send event data to Google Ads, Google Analytics, and Google Marketing platform. Instead of having to manage multiple tags for different products, you can use GTag.js and more easily benefit from the latest measurement features and integrations as they become available. Usually, there are 2 types of snippets working in unison. The first one is the global site snippet. It must appear at the top of every page on your website. The second one is the event snippet. For website conversion tracking to work, the event snippet should be installed on the conversion page itself. Here is an example of the conversion tags. Global site tag. The global site tag should be placed on all pages of your website. You can copy and paste the code between the head tags on every page of your website. It sets new cookies on your domain, which will store a unique identifier for a user or the ad click that brought a user to your site. But if you previously installed a global set tag while creating another conversion action from the same Google Ads account, you shouldn't add the global snippet again. Event snippet. For website conversion tracking to work, the event snippet should be installed on a conversion page itself. For page load event, add the snippet to a page a customer reaches after completing a conversion. It can be placed anywhere in the code after the global tag snippet, but we strongly recommend placing it within the head section for the best tracking accuracy. For the click event, add the snippet to the page that has a button or link you'd like to track for clicks. The equivalent fields on Google Ads API are the global set tag and event snippet of a tag snippet object within the conversion action resource. The best way to set up new conversion actions in the API is to use the add conversion action code example in the remarketing folder of your client library. This example handles all the background authentication tasks for you and walks you through the creation of a conversion action resource. Now, let's demo it in a lab coding session about how to create a website conversion action and how to get the tracking tags. Okay, in this lab coding session, I will show you how to create a conversion action for your website using the Google Ads API, how to get its resource name and the code snippets from the response. I have already set up the Java client library on my laptop, so let's get started. It's a common process to create a resource in the Google Ads API in 3 steps. Create an instance of the resource, for example, conversion action, create an operation, and then send a mutated request to the service client, including this operation. And now let's go. Conversion action equals, it's a good practice to always use the builder class to initialize a resource in the Java client library using the new builder method and then build it. And within this builder, we can also set several attributes. The first one, name, conversion action for your website. We can also add some random suffix to the end of the string to make the name unique within the Google Ads account. Next field, category. Let's go back to the reference doc to see the definition of this field. It's the category of conversions reported for this conversion action. It's a enum type field, and you can use this field to segment your campaign reports. The optional values include default, page view, purchase, sign up, and for our case, let's use purchase. The tab, because we have talked about different conversion action tabs for web page, for mobile apps, for phone calls, and let's use web page as the value here. Set its status to enabled to make its conversion action running immediately after created. Next field is view through lookback window days. The name of the field is a little long, and we can see what does it mean in the reference doc. It's the maximum number of days which may elapse between an impression and the conversion without interaction. Because a person may see your ad and not interact with it, then convert later. This is called a view through conversion, and we can set this value to 15 days. Lastly, value settings. Settings related to the values for the conversion events associated with this conversion action. Several attributes here. The first one is default value. The value to use when conversion events for this conversion action are sent with an invalid, disallowed, or missing value, or when this conversion action is configured to always use the default value. This is when the always use default value field is set to true, because it controls whether the default value and the default currency code are used for the conversion actions. Value settings also use the builder class. Set default value to $5 and always use default set to true. Okay, then let's create the operation for the conversion action. Still use the builder class. The operator is create, and the operand is the conversion action instance we just initialized. After that, let's try to obtain a service client from the Google Ads client. Conversion action, service client. Get latest version, create a conversion action service client. All the service clients are auto-closable, so we have to put them into the try with resources blocks. Then request the mutate conversion actions method. This method takes two parameters. The first one is the customer ID, and the second one is a list of operations. And the return type is mutate conversion actions response. Then let's try to extract the resource name from the response about the new created conversion action. Then print this into system console. Conversion action created with resource name. You are always suggested to use the Google Ads service and Google Ads query language to retrieve all the resources and reports. But for this particular case, because we are just working with a single conversion action, we can easily use the get method to obtain the newly created conversion action. Then print this into system console. Now let's try to execute this code example. We can see that in the response, there are different tag snippets returned. And let's go back to the reference doc to see the definition of this field. It's a list type field, which means the snippets used for tracking conversions. Type here means the type of generated tag snippets for tracking conversions. For example, web page on click, the different event types we can track. Page format is the format of the web page to install the tags. For example, HTML page, AMP page. Now let's talk about the audience and the remarketing and different audience types. About remarketing. Remarketing is a way to connect with people who previously interacted with your website or mobile app. It allows you to strategically position your ads in front of these audiences as they browse Google or its partner websites, thus helping you increase your brand awareness or remind those audiences to make a purchase. Whether you are looking to drive sales activity, increase registrations, or promote awareness of your brand, remarketing can be a strategic component of your advertising. For example, you can show your ads to people who previously interacted with your business when they are searching elsewhere and are more likely to make a purchase. You can create a remarketing list targeted for people who added something to their shopping carts but didn't complete a transaction. You can also reach people on your remarketing list across the devices as they browse over 2 million websites and mobile apps. You can remarket and target specific audiences with a user list resource on the Google Ads API. The list can be constructed from different audience types. But today, I would like to showcase 4 crucial scenarios with live coding or presenting the code snippet in the rest of this webinar. Visitors with specific actions. This can include actions such as a purchase on your website or app. This scenario asks you to set up a conversion action ahead of time, which combines our 2 topics for conversion and audience together. Visitors to your website. This is done through advertiser-defined rules. A rule can be as simple as including all visitors to your website, and this is the most commonly used audience type. Visitors to specific pages. This is done by targeting users that have visited a URL that contains or equals a given value. Lastly, similar audiences. People who share similar interests and behaviors with those in other user lists. To create a user list to your website using the Google Ads UI, we can click the Tools icon. Under the Shared Library section, let's click the Audience Manager link. The plus button. Then create a user list as website visitors. For audience name, let's use audience of Devon's website. We can define different types of visitors from which we can create an audience. For example, visitors of a page, visitors of a page who also visited another page, visitors of a page with specific actions. For more information about the different categories of the user lists, we can click this link into the Google Ads Help Center to learn more details about how to use templates to create website remarketing lists. All Google Ads accounts have exactly one account level remarketing tag, created automatically when the account is opened. The tag is available even if you haven't initialized the remarketing. The first step is to retrieve your account's remarketing tag by issuing a Google Ads query language against the remarketing action resource. Remarketing action is a virtual concept and invisible in the Google Ads UI source. You can create multiple remarketing actions, but the tag snippet are all the same. Besides, if you have successfully installed the global set tag for conversion actions, as discussed above in your website, there is no need to install the remarketing tag again because they share the same account ID in GTag.js within the same Google Ads account. Let's look at the first scenario, visitors with specific actions. This scenario links together the 2 concepts we talked about today, conversion actions and user list. You can populate your audience list with people who have taken specific actions on your website. If you are using conversion tracking, you can target ads to people who previously triggered a conversion, such as a purchase or add to cart on your website. Before doing the live coding session, we can tell a fiction story of the business use case. Let's say Devon is the owner of an online electric guitar shop. He has been running ads to drive traffic to his website. Now, Devon wants to run ads to target people who ever took specific actions, such as add guitars into the shopping cart. Let's take a look at how he might use the Google Ads API to accomplish this. In this code example, I will create a basic user list in 3 steps for the given conversion actions. Firstly, create a list of user list action info objects for the given conversion actions. Then create a basic user list info object without commercial actions. Finally, create the basic user list resource. A basic user list defines its membership as people who had triggered one or more conversion trackers on your website. So when you create a basic user list, you provide the resource name of the conversion action to a user list action info object, which is ultimately passed into the user list. Here, for each conversion action ID, let's build a user list action info object. Set conversion action to the resource name of the given conversion action using customer ID and the conversion action ID. Then let's build a basic user list info object to include this user list action info objects. Set add all actions to the list. Finally, let's create a user list to include the basic user list info object we just constructed. In the builder class, we can also set several attributes. The first one is the name. Basic user list. And we also have to add a random suffix to the end of the string to make the name unique within your Google Ads account. Then the description. We can set this as a list of people who have triggered one or more conversion actions on your website. After that, let's set the basic user list info object. Another two fields. The first one is the membership lifespan. We can go back to the reference doc to see its definition. It's the number of days a user's cookie stays on your list since its most recent addition to the list. The field must be between 0 and 540 inclusive. So we can set this to 1 year. Lastly, the membership status. It means membership status of the list. It indicates whether a user list is open or active. Only open user list can accumulate more users and can be targeted to. So we have to set the value to open. As covered before, you can use the similar approach to create a user list operation and use the create operator. Then obtain the user list service client from the Google Ads client and send a mutated request to create this user list on the Google Ads API server. We missed something in step 1 to add the user list action info objects into the list. So let's make it. Then reformat the source code to execute this code example. We can see that a basic user list was successfully created. Let's go to scenario 2, visitors to your website, which might be the simplest type of audience list, comprise all the visitors to your website. Now, David wants to run his ads of guitars to target all the people who ever visited his website. How can David accomplish this using the Google Ads API? There are different kinds of user lists with different characteristics. To create a user list that captures everyone who visited any page on your website, set the rule-based user list field of the user list with a rule-based user list info object. Then specify an expression rule user list info field on the rule-based user list info object, which contains a rule targeting people who visited your website. Let's walk through the entire process, and there are totally 4 steps for us to go. Let's start with step 1, the expression root user list info. In the IDE, let's try to construct a user list root item info object. This will target any user that visited the URL containing devonguitar.com. Using the builder class. The first attribute is the name. This is a special field, and there are several special requirements on this, and we can go back to the reference doc for the details. It's the root variable name. It should match the corresponding key name fired by the pixel. And for websites, there are 2 built-in parameters. For example, URL _. This field must be populated when creating a new root item. And for this case, let's use URL _. Add a comment here. Uses a built-in parameter to create a domain URL rule. Then set the string root item attribute with a user list string root item info object. The operator is contains. And the value is Devon's domain name, and this will target users visited the URL containing devonguitar.com. Then we can construct an expression root user list info object, which specifies that the user list targets visitors of a page based on the provided URL. Set the root field to a user list root info object. Then add root item groups. We can add the provided rule in the user list root item group info object with the add root items method. Now step 2, define the rule-based user list info. Let's construct a rule-based user list info object. This defines a representation of the user list that is generated by the rule. The first attribute is the pre-population status. We can go back to the reference doc to see the specification of this field. It's the status of pre-population. If it's set to requested, past set visitors or app users who match the list definition will be included into the list. So let's set it to requested. We can also add some comments here. This field is optional, and to include the past users into the list, we can set this status to requested. After that, let's include the expression rule user list info object into this rule-based user list info object. Let's go to step 3 to create a user list. Construct a user list instance using the builder class. Set its name to all visitors to devonguitar.com. and add a random suffix to the end of the string to make the name unique within your Google Ads account. Then set the description to any visitor to any page of davidguitar.com. Two more fields. The first one is membership lifespan, set it to 1 year, and membership status to open. We have covered both of these two fields in the past live coding session, so we will not go into the details again. Then add the rule-based user list info object into the user list. Here we follow the same process to create the user list in the Google Ads API. Create the user list operation, specify the operator as create, then obtain the user list service client from the Google Ads client and send a mutated request to the API server. We can obtain the resource name of the user list and then print this into the system console. Alright, we are almost there. And finally, let's target the ads to the newly created user list. Here we construct an ad group criterion resource. This will target the members of the newly created user list. Using the builder class, we have to provide the resource name of this ad group with custom ID and the given ad group ID. Then set the user list field to a user list info object, including the resource name of the newly created user list. We can follow the same process to add this ad group criterion to the API backend server. Build an operation with create as the operator, obtain the service client, and send a mutated request. Then print the resource name to the system console. Let's go one step further to scenario 3 to target people who visited specific pages or sections on your website, not just your website's domain. For example, Devon wants to target people who looked at specific pages featuring high-end guitars, such as the Fendi and the Gibson brand pages. In this case, we can use a combined rule user list object. The targeting would be done the same way as in the previous example. Only the first step changes, where we use a combined rule user list object rather than expression rule user list. To create a user list targeting the users that visited both the Fendi brand page and the Gibson brand page, we will go into 5 steps. Firstly, define the rules targeting the users for Fendi brand page and Gibson brand page. Then wrap them into the user list rule info objects. After that, create a combined user list info object. Then define a rule-based user list info object representing a user list that is generated by this rule. And finally, create a user list resource. Now let's go. Here we define the user list rule item info object as the first rule. Let's set its name to the URL string parameter of the value URL _. Because as mentioned in previous session, it means the rule or variable name. And for websites, there are 2 built-in parameters such as URL _. Let's add some comments here. Use a built-in parameter to create a domain URL rule. Then set the string root item field with a user list string root item info object. The operator is equals, and the value is the URL of the Fendi brand page. Here we define the first rule for the users visited the Fendi brand page. Then let's wrap this into a user list rule info object. Add rule item groups with a user list rule item group info object. And set the first rule into it. We can just copy the first rule with some minor changes into the second rule because they share the similar structure. Just change the URL to the Gipso brand page. Then copy the first rule info into the second one with some minor changes. Now let's construct a combined rule user list info object where visitors of a page who did visit another page. Set the left operand to be the first rule for Fendi brand page, and the right operand to be the second rule for the Gipso brand page. The rule operator is AND. But if you would like to target visitors of a page who didn't visit another page, you can change the value to AND NOT. But for our business case, let's use the AND value here. After that, let's define a rule-based user list info object. It's optional, but you can set the pre-population status to requested. This means it will include past users in the user list. We have already covered this field in previous sessions. Then set the combined rule user list object into it. In the final step, let's construct a user list resource. Set its name to all visitors to both Fendi and Gipso brand pages. We can add a random suffix to the end of the string to make this name unique within your Google Ads account. Description adds visitors to both Fendi and Gipso brand pages in devonguitar.com. Then set the membership status to open. And membership lifespan to 1 year. We have covered both of these two fields in previous sessions, so we will not go into the details here. Lastly, set the rule-based user list info object. We can follow the common process to add the user list into the Google Ads API server. Create a user list operation, open the service client, and send a mutated request. Now let's try to execute this code example. In the system console, we can see that a user list has been successfully created. Across scenarios 2 and 3, we demonstrated how to use the rule-based user list info object. Rule-based user lists allow you to define a targeting audience for your ads based on the URLs or custom parameters you add to the remarketing tag. Custom parameters are key value pairs that you can implement in the GTAG.js in order to categorize your site visitors in more sophisticated ways to further tailor your bids and ads. The keys and values that you implement in custom parameters are sent through the GTAG.js to your Google Ads account and become available when you create user lists. An online store, for example, can collect the product price and the page tab to create a list for people who bought any products above a certain price. In this case, the custom parameters that included in the GTAG.js would be valuable, such as the price of this product and the page tab. In this case, the purchase page. It's up to you to determine what non-personally identifiable information about your site visitors would be valuable in targeting your ads. And here are a few examples in the table about custom parameters, the definitions, the names, and the business cases. David's business created an advertising funnel to show different ads to people at various stages. He would like to show more impressions to users who have placed multiple items in their shopping carts and initialized the checkout process. He also wants to find users who have made a purchase during November and December, because David plans to have a big sale on the site during those months. He can describe the set of users with either of the following rules. Users who visited the checkout page and had more than one products in their shopping cart. Users who checked out during the months of November or December. So, how to create a user list only targeting those people using the Google Ads API? Let's go through the code snippet. The first checkout rule item uses the e-commerce page tab parameter, which has string values. So he must create a string rule item object. Please note the rule variable name must match a corresponding custom parameter name from the GTAG.js from the remarketing tag. The second rule item uses the cart size parameter, which has number values. So now he needs a number rule item greater than 1. This means in the shopping cart, there are more than one products. Lastly, the date range. Both the start date and end date items use the checkout date parameter, which has date values. So this time, he will populate the date rule item fields with user list date rule item info objects. If you want to learn more about the advanced usage of custom parameters and how to combine these rule items together, please check out the Setup Advanced Remarketing Code example on the API developer side. Let's take a high-level overview of the structure for a rule-based user list. This diagram shows the classes we have used in previous use cases. A rule-based user list is represented in the Google Ads API as a rule-based user list info class. On the top level is the user list class. Under that is rule-based user list info. Then expression rule user list info. You can specify the logical expressions using the and, or operators among classes of user list rule item group info and user list rule item info. On the leaf node level, you can define detailed rules such as string rule item info, number rule item info, and date rule item info. One way of reaching new customers is using the similar audience. With this user list, you can target people who share characteristics with those in your other user lists. Let's say Devon has found his targeting to be successful, but now he wants to find more customers to advertise to. A good option for him is using the similar user list feature in the Google Ads API. A similar user list is automatically generated by Google for each user list object, based on a variety of factors. For example, the number of people on the original list, how recently they joined this list, the types of sites they browsed, and whether the list is yours. This process may take up to 4 days, starting from when the source list was created. The below search query demonstrates how to find all available similar user list objects given the seed user list. Now, let's talk about the audience performance and reporting. In today's session, we will not go into the details for Google Ads service and the grammar of the Google Ads query language. You can learn more information from the Google Ads API developer set as well. In order to collect performance data for your user lists, just issue a search request to the Add Group Audience View resource. You can also segment your report by user list to retrieve the data of one or more specific lists. For example, you may use this query statement to look at the conversions and cost per conversions to determine if targeting members of the list is actually leading to more conversions. Then adjust your bids accordingly. All right, before moving to the Q&A session, let me share some useful references. Here is a resource list. The first one is developer set. This will show you how to get started with Google Ads API. It shares the developer guides, the best practices, and how to migrate from AdWords API to Google Ads API. Some links about conversion actions and remarketing user list, how to operate on both Google Ads UI and Google Ads API. The client libraries for 6 languages and the code examples, and some useful developer tools that you may want to utilize. For example, interactive Google Ads Query Builder, which helps you build a query statement very quickly. The Ads API Web Navigator, a Chrome extension to show the related pages of Google Ads API websites based on the current page of Google Ads UI. The official blog about the latest information for Google Ads API. And for any questions during development, please feel free to reach out to the API forum and support email. All right, with that, thank you for listening to this webinar. We hope that you learned a lot and really have new understandings on the website conversions, audience, and remarketing using the Google Ads API. But I'm sure that you all have some questions. So I will invite my teammates to join me into the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Van. Let me refresh the Q&A page here so we can take a look at the questions. And thank you all for providing such great questions throughout. This is really helpful in terms of helping other developers learn from you. So I see some really terrific questions here. So we'll just go through. I've got some of our teammates on the line, and they'll introduce themselves before they answer any questions. But we'll go through these one by one. Some of these already have answers, so I'll just ask the folks responding to kind of address their answers if they've already answered it. So let's just start at the top here. The first question is, how can I import the analytics conversions using the Google Ads API? It seems to be only possible via UI.
Right. So currently, the linking of analytics and actually there's a couple of questions that are kind of related here. The linking between your Google Ads and Google Analytics accounts is only possible via the UI. You can retrieve, you may see your conversion actions from analytics come back in API responses as unknown. But you currently cannot enable them, but that's something we're looking into.
Cool, thanks Josh. And that was Josh Radcliffe, one of the developer relations engineers who's on the team with both Fan and myself. So the next question we have here is, I'm using the Google Analytics Management API to link Google Analytics property with Google Ads. How can I switch import site metrics to enabled using the API? It only seems possible via UI.
Josh here again. I think this is similar to this is related to the last question, or my last answer. We do not currently have a feature for actually changing that, like enabling that, but I know that's also under consideration.
Great, thanks Josh. And if folks still have questions while we're going through the list here, feel free to continue posting them. We'll answer them in real time. The link isn't on the top of the screen anymore, but it's in the description of the YouTube channel, or the live stream. All right, the next comment here is about understanding the presenter. Thank you for this feedback. This is really valuable to us, so perhaps in the future we'll have some sort of subtitles or something if that's possible. But generally speaking, if anyone has any other comments about how we can make these webinars better and more useful to you all, we love getting that feedback. We want to make these as useful as we can. Feel free to submit that comment here, or if you have other comments, there's a feedback link on the top right corner of every page of the documentation pages. So you're more than welcome to give us that feedback there as well. Okay. So next question, is there a way to build a list of users that are not targeted by any other user list? That would be helpful to calculate bid modifiers on user list property.
Hello, I'm Philip Wetzler. I'm an engineer on the API. So it depends a little bit on exactly what the use case here is. There are some features that we have that you can use to build lists derived from other lists. We have combined audiences and we have logical lists. And so those can do this in some cases, but it depends a little bit on exactly what you want. In a more general way, I would say, if you try to target everyone who's not on lists, you can do that via the ad group by creating an ad group that excludes the lists you don't want, which could be all of your lists. And then you can pinpoint just that part of your audience very precisely.
Terrific, thank you, Philip. So we scroll down here, just a comment, increased support for Google AdWords API. If you recall the resources page that Fan had gone through just before the Q&A, we have a number of resources for you, from documentation to the Google Ads and AdWords API support alias, which is Google Ads API-support at google.com, And we also encourage you to visit the community forum in order to pose your questions. Okay, we'll see if give folks just another minute if anyone has any further questions. All right, last call for questions. If not, we'd like to thank you all for joining the webinar here. We hope this was really valuable for you. Okay, one more question. See if I can find it. So here's a question. If I have one user list with a bid modifier of plus 10%, I can't level this out if I don't have a list for the rest of the users. That's a problem.
So yeah, that's a continuation of that question or clarification, I think. So again, like, it depends on the rest of your setup, but in general, like, if you bid modify plus 10% on the one user list, then the rest of your users will get the default bid for the ad group. And so basically you can change the default bid for the ad group to effectively bid down on everyone else. And then the plus 10% will be for the people on your list. So that would be one way to do this.
Great, thank you, Philip. Another question here. What language do you suggest to integrate with the Google Ads API? This is one that I can cover. So as Fan mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we do have 6 client libraries available to use that definitely make integration a lot easier. Those are Python, Ruby, PHP, Java, .NET, and Perl. All right, any final questions before we go? And Luke says, thank you. The presenter did very well. Thank you, Luke. I'm sure Fan appreciates that a lot. Okay, just gonna find the new question here. Apologies. I think we've got them all. Give folks just another 30 seconds to pose any final questions that you might have. And while we're waiting, Fan pointed out a lot of documentation. I would definitely recommend, if this topic is of interest to you, I would definitely recommend checking out some of the guides that he referenced related to conversions and remarketing. They've got a ton of this information, walk through lots of the code examples in kind of different ways. So if you do prefer guides as opposed to videos, that might be really useful for you. Cool, thanks. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining. Again, we hope this is really valuable for you, and we look forward to connecting with you for the next webinar. All right, take care, everyone.